Hi everyone, welcome to Soul Print. Thank you so very much for being here. I am really excited because Kathy Beale is here. You've seen her before on this channel. Her YouTube channel is called Professional Aquarian, um, and she's amazing. And for those of you who don't know, a whole bunch of weeks or months ago, I made a statement on my channel saying, "Is there just somebody who can explain to me what's going on astrologically without like?" giving me all these details that just confused me. And she reached out to me and she said, "Here, will this do for you?" And I was like, "Yes, it will." So we have been, she's been generous enough to come on this channel a couple of times and just kind of clear us, ease us through some of the rough patches. So this is what I've asked Kathy to take a look at. So we're going to look at the time, basically, I think from now until the inauguration.
Mhm.
She has charts for both Trump, Vance, um, Harrison Walls, and the US. So I'm going to sit back and listen, and I'm just going to say, Kathy, welcome to Soul Print, and take it away.
Thank you. I always enjoy talking with you. Thank you for having me. I want to start by setting a general framework. And hold on a second. I need to okay that you're recording this. Done. Um, so I'll give you the big comforting piece, and then I'll give you the piece that you're going to go, oh, well, that makes sense. So the big comforting piece is that there is a progression from the first day of the Democratic National Convention to Inauguration Day. There is something that locked into place on that day that culminates on Inauguration Day, on January 20th. That something locked into Kamala Harris's chart in an incredibly energizing way and an important way. And it locked into Donald Trump's chart in a way that I have consistently been saying is the doors of the Iron Maiden closing in on him. And yes, that is a gruesome image, but I want people to understand there is an inevitability and also an incredible level of pain and damage coming to him. Now, what happened specifically was a configuration of planets that represent authority and everybody and expansion of possibilities and the feminine. And the representative of the feminine, Venus, was exactly on Kamala's Venus. So she was the physical embodiment of this propelling forward, but also closing the doors on him. On January 20th, on Inauguration Day, two of the bodies in that configuration, Venus representing the feminine and Saturn representing the governor or the leader or authority, go from being opposite each other, which is what was on August 19th, to standing together. There, that's a signature for a woman president, and it's in the 10th house, which is the most public house when you cast a chart for noon on that day. Now, if it hadn't locked so much into her chart on August 19th, and if that configuration didn't track with what happened when the DNC started, you might say that Venus plus Saturn could be authority squelching women. But because of everything else that's going on, I don't see that being the case at all. Because the way this plays out in Trump's chart and in Vance's chart is female authority figure as open enemy.
Okay.
And coming at it and hitting the same placement in Trump's chart that indicated, oops, time's up. So everyone know that we have this, there's a trajectory. It's in place. That's the clockwork. Before we get there, between the beginning of September and two-thirds of the way through November, we are at peak Looney Tunes. We are at peak misinformation, secrets coming out, machinations for reasons that are hidden from us, shocking news, shocking disclosures. If you think of the news just during the first full week of October, mind blowing, mind blowing. Oh, really? Stuff being given to the Kremlin. You just go through the list of, we thought this. Oh, the FBI being told not to investigate Justice Kavanaugh. Anyway, there's going to be more and more and more of that. It's going to get crazier than people giving death threats to meteorologists who are attempting to warn them that danger is coming. It's going to get crazier than lies being told about what federal disaster relief is doing. I don't even want to project where it'll go. So just know that you're going to be told a lot of things that make you go, we have all just finally lost our minds. And the reason for this is that the three outermost planets in our solar system, Uranus, agent of cosmic radical change, Neptune, which I call the cosmic fog machine, and Pluto, agent of cosmic agent of unavoidable evolutionary change. The three of them are in cahoots. They're moving they're closely contacting, and they're each finishing up their time in the sign that they've been in. So we've got stuff going back from 2008. That's Pluto's start in Capricorn. We have stuff going from 2014, which is when Neptune entered Pisces, which it rules, 24, and then 2019 when Uranus entered Taurus. And one more piece to add into this. As they do this, they are all having a conversation with the US Pluto, how we experience power, money, whatever, um, and the US Moon, which represents the people. So everything is highly personal to this country going on right now. So how's that
Wow.
for that's the stage that we're dealing with here.
Okay.
Do, do you have
It
questions
feels,
about any of that?
it feels sort of like a lot of deep breathing is going to be required and
Right.
calming
And
down.
stepping away from stuff and also um choosing what you're going to expose yourself to. And I just want to warn people that there is an uptick of uh, uh, some people believing there's a timeline in which the court gives the election to Trump. So if that, puts you into horrendous trauma, uh, do whatever positive things you can. And don't don't fuel that. Don't feed that. Don't feed it. Um,
I think we're entering into a time where there's going to be so much misinformation. It feels like people have to be really discerning about what they're taking in and recognizing that it's whatever they're taking in, even the really good positive stuff is a piece of a puzzle.
yes.
And it's going to be a while until we are able to see the whole picture. But it sounds like a bit of a bumpy ride.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And and I've heard you speaking in terms of post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
I would my view on that is that we haven't hit post. We're in persistent traumatic stress.
That's
And
accurate.
uh and keep that in mind. All right. So when you find yourself going, oh my God, I don't know how much longer I can deal with this. Anybody who has dealt with an abuser, anyone who has had their mind messed with, anyone who has been gaslit is having all kinds of trauma reawakened by things that are happening now, and know that you're reacting to time present, but you're also reacting to everything else that has brought you to this point. I personally believe baths are really useful. Um, I came up with, well, it's a kind of raw ritual, but it might work for some people. And that is when you find this stuff building up in your body, open the lid to your toilet and put your hands over it and shoot whatever it is out of you into the toilet bowl and then flush it
I like
down the
that.
drain.
Yeah. I also I do the one with like in the shower, like washing it down the drain.
Good. Yes,
Right.
that's a good one too.
Yeah.
But I like that. That's useful. You can do that anytime you're taking a shower. Uh,
I
however,
like the toilet one though, I gotta say, right? It's a little bit more
there's a
literal, right?
well, there's yeah, and there's a bit of the imagery that really helps.
Yeah.
Like this is toxic, this is awful, this is stuff I would just want to process and get
Yeah.
out of me. Also know that there's a low level of panic. And if you are the slightest bit open, which I think most people who watch this would be, you're picking it up and you may be carrying terror from other people. It might not all be you. So I invite people, if you go to my site, empowermentunlimited.net, I have a free um 1 hour talk called Reclaiming Your Energy that leads you through a number of tools that will be little tricks you can use to get this out of your system. If you go to the link at the top that says shop and then go through the shop, Reclaiming Your Energy, it is zero. It is free. It is free. So you can just have it. It's my
Thank
public
you.
service.
That's going to be helpful, I'm sure, to a lot of people. Please, I encourage you to check it out. This woman is a master at what she does.
Thank you. So I want to move on to what is going to start uh, in the middle of October. That will be very important. There is a full moon on the 17th in the sign of Aries. This is when the sun and the moon are opposite. It's not an eclipse, although it's in the same sign as the eclipse family that we've been in since March of 2023. So full moons always bring things to a head. They bring moments of release. Aries is ruled by Mars, so the emotions can be really fiery. They can be really aggressive. They can be very me, and ignoring other people because the other end of it is Libra, which is people, relationships. However, this one has um, complications. It has a tight square, which is pushing you forward from the ruler of Aries, Mars, god of war, is slamming against the moon. In fact, it's monkey in the middle. So both logic and emotion are pushing on um, fast action and being a hothead. But opposite all this is Pluto at the very end of Capricorn. So to explain, Pluto in Capricorn has been dredging up and bringing to light things that aren't working, corruption, rot, decay, in where we put our feet on the ground, in family systems, in institutions, in infrastructure, in foundations. And
That's
so
been going on for a lot of years, right? Like 18 years or
Yes,
something.
2008.
Yeah, that's a
January
really long time.
2008, it
Okay.
started. And it's ducked out briefly into its next mode of expression, but in the beginning of September, it moved back to this final degree. And on the 11th of October, Pluto has station direct, meaning that it's headed toward the exit door. It leaves on November 18. So, Pluto is just parked at this incredible bearing down. Let's get as much junk out. And it's also in this challenging relationship to the sun and the moon. So we have basically what's called a grand cross. Sun opposite moon, Mars opposite Pluto, and it gives a sense of tension being pulled simultaneously in multiple directions, and it's going to increase the intensity and the build up of all of the aggression and assertiveness and frustration and I gotta do something about this
Mm.
and so on an individual it's having an impact on an individual level on Harris and on Trump. So and on the US chart, everybody's got it. So what it's doing is uh, emboldening people so that when they do finally have an opening that they can do something, which may not come till about the 22nd.
Okay.
Um, you'll have an image I use is a Wonder Woman twirling and twirling and twirling and twirling and twirling. Only now she's doing it ridiculously long, and when she finally lets go, heaven help anyone who gets in her way. This is going to energize really, really, really pissed off women. For just
Okay.
everyone be forewarned, mansplain at your peril in October. Anybody out there who's inclined to do that. But what it does to Kamala is this happens right before her birthday, and she's got Libra Sun, Aries Moon, opposition. She's a full moon baby, naturally. So this is kind of it's just building up her strength. What it's doing to Trump, however, has it's part of the there's no escape. And I
Right.
want to focus a little bit on the ruler of Aries, Mars. All right.
Okay.
Mars rules the masculine. It's how we push ourselves forward. Wherever it is in your chart, you could have people irritating you or motivating you. It's a timer. When it hits something in your chart, it tends to make things happen.
Okay.
Well, it's in the sign of Cancer, which has to do with women and families and nurturing. And we have two extreme models of this in the public eye right now. We have the model of I'm going to tell women what to do, and men want women just to stay at home and be incubators and take care of babies. And then there's also at the other extreme, caring, nurturing men who stand up for the people that they love. This is going over 3 times between now and March. This is going over the two planets in Trump's chart that are the signature for his family money, that are the signature for the Trump Organization. And uh, so the tension that is hitting him and the all these people being angry at him and something coming at him starts to build at a level that we haven't seen yet next week. And then it comes around again in January, and then it finishes in March when a couple of other things happen. March is my target time for him not walking around freely in the world for whatever reason.
Okay.
So, no matter what you see coming out of him, know that he's got something punching at him relentlessly that he cannot escape. And women are part of it, but it goes way, way, way beyond that.
So just a kind of a question. Would that a sort of energy that he's dealing with account for literally his lack of energy and this sort of moving along like he's a zombie and not being engaged? Or is that something else?
I would say that has to do with what Neptune is doing to him. Hang on, let me find his chart here.
It's just like he is so, so low energy compared to kind of what we're used to.
Well, this full moon, actually, this full moon does have an incredibly immobilizing impact, and it pulls his own Mars in to the immobilization. And he may just be getting angrier and as if that is something anybody wants to think about. Angrier and angrier and angrier as this goes on. Almost apoplectic is the word that comes to mind. Um, it's a bit like a butterfly pinned onto a board,
Mhm.
and it can flap, but it can't really get anywhere. Also, one other thing that's happening with him is he's reverting more and more and more to the default behavior he goes to when he's under stress, which is lying, 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 grifting, coming up with, for example, that GoFundMe that you have mentioned in your forecast, the GoFundMe that supposedly his campaign set up for victims of Helene. That's a doesn't that look like a money laundering vehicle? I mean, honestly, just like the watches, like, oh, we don't even guarantee that we're going to deliver them. Here, just
Yeah.
give us money and no one will trace it. Um, so that's part of it, but also there's an element here too of just descending more and more and more into a world that has nothing to do with what physical reality is like. So that's going on with him as well. Very, very much so. I will also mention with him, there's one influence that's been hitting his place in the world like a wrecking ball. If you look at a chart, there's a line that goes straight down the middle that delineates where you are at home in the world and where you are out in public. So it's home and career, family and public life. So the wrecking ball has hit the top part once. It's heading back for it, and it will be exactly there in what was that month I mentioned? March. And before then, there is another influence using a very arcane forecasting technique that puts um, Pluto in that same spot in November. So he has stuff that's absolutely destabilizing his connection to everything. I mean, it's everything. Career, public reputation, family. I would imagine something's going on with his marriage, where his physical home is, all of those things complete just about to collapse completely. It's like a protracted month long, many month long tower moment again and again and again and again with um, things detonating all over the
Yeah.
place.
Wow. Okay, so he's going to be fun to deal with.
Exactly. And he will just resort to spin, to lies, to I don't know. I don't know. Is the Apprentice documentary coming out? That would be a piece of just really making him making him crazy. But there is also a component of this is increasingly believing what he's saying, or an increasing blurring between um, reality and his experience of things. And that has looked anyway. So those of you who are freaking out over, oh no, what's going to happen with him? Um, he's physically and mentally not capable. He isn't even really in proper puppet or marionette working order at this point. And if you worry about, oh, okay, I mean, there are some people who think, oh, there's this move afoot to get things going for just get him in and then take him out and put Vance in. Well, on Inauguration Day, Vance has a female authority figure as an open enemy. So I don't think that's
It'll work
coming
for
from
him.
him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-mm. Now, I want to talk a little more about Mars because it's going to stay in this challenging relationship with Pluto until November 5th, which is election day. And so
Yes.
this hits its peak right before, right before election day. And as Mars moves ahead, it's going to be slamming the US Pluto. It's going to be in an uncomfortable relationship with the US moon. Um, and the issue of who are women, and big issues of what constitutes the family, tribalism, if you want to say nationalism, whatever, that's all going on with this. So right before the election, Mars and Pluto make their final opposition, which is a real standoff. And we've got the god of war facing down the god of death right before the election. Now, one colleague of mine, whom I greatly, greatly admire, has been focusing on this and saying something is going to go very, very unexpectedly because of this. Now, they're both at the very, very end of their signs, which does make things really extreme. But I go back to we've been living through this. Every couple of years, Mars has been opposing Pluto. This is not new. So I don't know what it means. I don't know if there is a relief that happens. I do know that when I look at the chart for election day, it starts off optimistic and buoyant, and then it gets kind of serious as the day goes on. The moon changes signs. But the big question I have about looking at how that plays into all the charts is the election's already started. Voting is already happening. So I do not know at this point how much emphasis is really appropriate to put on the chart of the actual election day because so many ballots have already been cast.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But
Question. I keep distracting you, but so when I can just hear my viewers saying, does that mean that does that have any impact? Is that going to increase the likelihood of sort of problems with people in a line getting hassled or issues at polling stations? Or is that like not likely to impact? Because some
well,
people are getting scared to vote on election day because they're hearing all kinds of stories about what may or may not go on.
I would I would say let me find the US chart and election day. That the real power games will be in the days immediately leading up to it.
Okay, good.
Because by the time November 5th rolls around, Mars moves into um, territory that is very empowering. Actually, it's very empowering for everybody. Um, so I don't, I will say it looks like there's going to be a huge turnout, that there will be open information warfare mounting and mounting and mounting. So people may want to be incredibly mindful of what news reports they watch. Very, very mindful, and I would definitely stay off social media because who knows? Because it's going to be it's warfare central at that point. Much more there are things in this that seem to indicate it's time for a change, not going back to same old, not going back to patriarchal stuff, not going back to women having their rights imperiled. Now, you can argue each of these tickets has an element of an old thing, but not if you listen to what it is they want to do. Um, and there's definitely something groundbreaking about a woman president, and that does fit with Uranus, which is the planet of change, in the sign of Venus, which is Taurus of Venus rules Taurus, and slamming into the U.S. moon. So I, there are many ways you can look at this and say it spells female president, female president, female president. There are a few things in December that are going to end up being important.
Mhm.
One timeline, one thing to keep in mind, the big one to keep in mind is right around December 24th. There
Okay.
is a second there's a second occurrence of part of the configuration that was in place on at the start of the Democratic National Convention.
Mhm.
Um, and it pulls in uh, the change agent planet in Harris's chart. So
Okay.
if I know that certification is supposed to happen earlier than that, but things do feel like they lock in for her by Christmas Eve, and people can say, "Ah, it takes so long, it takes so long." Well, there are processes, and yeah, we know one thing, usually pretty close on election day or a day or two after, but then there's the paperwork. So
Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
the machinery just looks very, very much like it's female president, and this recurrence on the 24th stabilizes the potential of August 19th. It's like, okay, locking it into place.
Okay. And so anything else going on in December, or are we moving into January?
Well, the other thing I want to mention in December is that the planet Mars goes retrograde. Now,
Okay.
every planet retrogrades. The moon doesn't, but every planet retrogrades. And you can look at it as a time to go back over and revisit whatever has been stirred up in your life having to do with it. Mars will turn retrograde. It'll move out of Cancer, which is where it's making all this real incredible discomfort, into the sign of Leo, which is very me, 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 me. I'm going to do all this. And, there could be some that could pump up the bluster and bravado on Trump's part, but it's also going to pump Biden up. Who's been talking about him? Nobody. Biden's not going away. All right. His birthday chart for this year, good Lord. I mean, had he decided to run, he would be on fire. So those of you who like to think of, like to warm yourself with Dark Brandon. Oh, he's here. He will continue to be here. But okay, so Mars goes retrograde on December 6th, and in January it scoots back into Cancer. I bring this up because Mars is going to actually be in Cancer for an extraordinarily long period of time because of this retrograde. And that's why Trump gets to revisit this stuff in January when Mars trumps backwards over his little signature for his money. And then in March when it trumps forward over his little signature for his money. So the issues that are being stirred and stoked now, and especially with the Aries full moon, which immobilizes us and gets us really, so that we all want to be like the old movie Network and open our windows up and scream, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it any longer. Um, every fight song you can think of, it's going to be part of this. Um, it's what's happening now, we get to revisit. We've revisited in January, we revisited in March, and there will be consequences because Trump's planet of consequences is involved in this. So there will be consequences, consequences, consequences for him. For the rest of us, whatever is being stirred up in you right now, you will be revisiting and then acting forward, acting upon. So the issues of right now carry into March.
Okay. Good heads up.
One other thing about Mars going retrograde in December is uh, are going to probably be more internal. Uh, the holiday time may well not be as hectic as you might previously had. You might be inclined to just crawl under a blanket or sit and think or spend more time by yourself. You could look at it as a self-directed soul retrieval time. You have the opportunity to revisit things that you didn't quite do, and they're going to have a very strong self-expressive streak since the sign of Leo is involved. You
Right.
could find yourself really considering where someone tried to squelch your light, where someone invalidated you, where you have held yourself back, and rectify a bunch of, you may rectify situations where uh, you just got shoved in a corner. Men from the past tend to be important, and that can be you wake up thinking about them, that can be you actually hear from them, you could see them in social media feed. You know, it's pop. It doesn't mean you will physically reconnect with them, and so it's lots of ghosts. Um,
Okay.
but so just know that it could be a real, I'm going to go back and be a kid again time this December. People could find themselves incredibly drawn to doing things that made that time feel special to them when they were younger. So, I doubt it might be baking cookies. I don't know, but Leo doesn't
Okay.
necessarily bake, Leo consumes.
And so Kamala's going to be in good shape between the election and inauguration. She's on a strong path.
Yes. Yes, and so is Tim Walz. The action of Mars in his chart is pumping up his energy and his optimism and his bigness.
Mhm.
Through the end of October, we're going to see more and more and more of him. He will be an even greater champion. It'll be much more of the coach persona coming out, and he will be embodying, um, it's the fourth quarter, and we have to make sure we push this over the line. So it's going to be football coach time like crazy. Really,
Okay.
really, really energizing for him. Um, yeah,
Okay. And the US should also be able to cope with all of this crazy that's going to be going on.
just know that there are a couple of things about the US chart. The first one is we are going through something that parallels the time of Reconstruction, right after the Civil War was over. And there was a victimization. The planet that represents racism, and fundamentalism in the US chart is getting stirred up in the same way it did then. And in the period immediately following the Civil War, the moneyed interests managed to terrify poor whites about what blacks were going to do when economically the interests of the whites and the freed slaves were actually pretty similar, but moneyed interests inserted this divisiveness that stoked racism. And we're seeing that now again. So there's a segment of the population that is white that may not be doing all that well economically and is being given a demon to blame things on. It's like a repeat of what happened. So that's one thing that's going on,
Right.
unfortunately. So that's unresolved slavery issues, but also unresolved issues about the role that religion was to play because there were early colonists who were coming here for religious freedom, but some of them wanted freedom only for themselves and wanted to, I mean, the Pilgrims were not a really tolerant group. So there's a streak of, I am going to dominate. So there's some of that going on as well. Um, there is constant, unfortunately, um, open enemy meddling using information shown up in the US chart right now. So some of it involves Gemini's mouthing off. We've got a couple of those in the picture. And some of it involves outside interests stirring up antagonism and trouble and dissent using information. I have been saying for years that yes, we have been at war. We've been at war, I don't know, 2014, 2015, a long, long time. And that Russia did it without putting troops on the ground in the US and probably other countries as well. So know that a lot of the crazy that you're going to be running across is being fed by uh, actual enemies of the country, some of which are internal, some of which are external. And that's going to be pretty big until next spring. Next spring is a time when a lot of stuff shifts.
Yes.
And then in the summer, a lot of the energy just goes into something we have not experienced before.
That is a good thing.
It's a
That
different
is a
thing.
change thing.
It's a change thing, right?
Okay.
Right. Yeah, and it's part of realigning the allocation of power.
Okay.
Pluto's transit, Pluto moving from Capricorn into Aquarius, which it will do for the next few decades, starting on November 18. It'll be there until 2044. Pluto's shift will go from top-heavy power, which would be what we used to call um, plutocracy, plutocrats. Now we call them oligarchs. Uh, Few people have incredible wealth disparity. A couple of people having a whole lot of wealth, and then, or corporations moving from that to more across the board power. And the example of that we've already witnessed, that I will point everyone to, when Pluto was briefly in Aquarius this summer, the day that Biden withdrew from the campaign and handed the torch to Kamala, Pluto, there was the full moon in Capricorn at the very last degree of Capricorn, with Pluto at the very first degree of Aquarius. It was kind of a bridge between the old way of doing things and the new way of doing things. And Mars, which makes things happen, was in an unbroken flow to Pluto and Aquarius. And as soon as that handoff occurred, Zoom meetings erupted to raise money for her at unprecedented amounts. The
Yes.
first one being Black Women for Kamala, but and that broke Zoom. Pluto in Aquarius has to do with technology, and it's just continued. Groups you would never think have
Yeah.
been just doing that and doing that and doing that. So we have already experienced the power just
Yeah.
going sideways like crazy. There are a number of movements of sending yard signs into swing states. There are people, I've been doing this, uh, making little, preparing a bunch of post-it notes, little sticky notes about, hey, women, your vote's private. Keep women's rights, and then sticking them in restrooms. I did this all over Pennsylvania last month. Like, shoo. I go to red spots in New Jersey, and I wonder how long it's going to take one particular store I go to figure out that there's a correlation between my walking in the door and this stuff showing up in the restroom, but I won't identify what it is. So we're already experiencing that, and that will be more and more the norm. Uh, November 8, after November 18, and that's going to be in place at the inauguration. The sun and Pluto will be together in up at the top of the chart in the sky during the inauguration, a new system of power, a new way of being. And this is on top of Tim Walls's moon, which is his emotional driver, the way he relates to women, his ability to look at things for the good of all. Um, and then the stuff that's happening later next year is going to be in a cooperative relationship with that new way of being. Took me a while to get to it. Sorry.
No, I mean, and I mean, ultimately, I think it the bottom line is this: we're going through a really tough time now. It's going to be a little crazy. We need to be very careful about what we're consuming and absorbing. But as time moves on, it feels like things are going to start not stabilizing, but shifting in a way that, frankly, is overdue.
Yes.
And I think that people are going to be able to adapt as things go forward because it's not like all this change is going to happen between, November 18th and November 25th, right? I mean, this is a long, long process, but it's nice to get a couple of glimmers of what happens with that process and how that unfolds because it gives everybody, I think, a little bit of hope. I have one more question that I want to ask. So this whole Elon Musk thing, and the money that he's trying to dump in and the influence. I'm just curious, is there anything in Trump's part that would indicate that he has powers like that? I mean, never mind Project 25 and the Heritage Group. Is there anything in his chart that either is like a plus for him or ultimately might end up being a drawback for him in terms of that kind of monetary influence coming at him?
Well, interesting you say that.
I'm going to try.
I have mentioned that Mars in Cancer is going over Trump's signature for money in his house of that deals with the Trump organization, but it's also the part of his chart that deals with friends. And
Okay.
Musk is a Cancer.
Okay.
Okay, so Musk's sun is in the sign, so is his rising. I don't remember where his moon is. So, and there is the probability of cloaked dark money, cloaked money from other people floating in. And this all involves where Trump is getting hammered and will continue to be hammered, hammered now, hammered in January, hammered with really major consequences in March.
Right.
And there's stuff going on that also plays into his the vapor of his finances, the illusion, the dust, the whatever.
Yeah.
That's a piece of it also. So these deals, these alliances have the high probability of consequences.
Excellent. Okay, I think I picked your brain enough for right now. Thank you so much.
May I add
Um,
one thing?
I I hope you've all enjoyed this. Thank you so, so much, Kathy, for being here. Again, professional Aquarian. It's worth checking out. She does these little things that come out for like the week, right? So November, 7th to whatever. And they're really, really helpful. They just sort of give you a taste of what's going to be going on that week, sort of like personally, not politically, just sort of in the skies. And it's kind of nice to just check in every once in a while and kind of see, because there's definitely kind of some correlation between what she says and then what we all end up experiencing. So again, thank you so, so very much. Um,
May
Good
I add
comments
one
in the
last thing?
comment section. And is there anything you would like to say in signing off?
Yes, actually, there's one thing I want to add.
Yeah.
I am talking about this new influence of Pluto in Aquarius from a human and not an astrologer perspective on Sunday, October 27th. And it's a Zoom talk, so you can tune in from anywhere. And if you go to my website, it says Pluto in Aquarius talk. Hit that link and gives you information about it. And I'll be talking about what's happened with shifts in experience of power other times that Pluto has been in Aquarius. It's there like every 254 years. So there's
And
that.
I'm sure none of us remember what happened 254 years ago, so it's probably a good thing to check in and see what's going on there.
French Revolution,
Thank
American
you. Thank
Revolution.
you. All
You're
right,
very
everybody
welcome.
else,
Thanks,
take good
everybody.
care, be well, and we will see you soon. Bye bye for now. Bye.